It is Tuesday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto, 234 King Street East, out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Coming up today, we're going to start calling some people out. You heard me. Frauds. You're a goddamn fraud. Could be a player. Could be a team. I'm calling out an entire team. A team over the last 17 years that if you're in their fan base, need a new team. Clearly, you got to get someone better because they don't care. Also, it was a busy day or busy weekend. The Labor Day Classics. Were they classics? You know what? There were some moments. I think that some of those games were closer than I thought. And if you're a Calgary Stampeder fan, you're sitting there kind of going, what are you guys doing? And then Bo Levi Mitchell has to leave the field. Come back with that bionic brace. That didn't look good. In fact, that was just a game I thought that probably Edmonton may have been full marks for winning it, to be honest. How about the Montreal Alouettes?
Hey.
And it ain't Johnny Manziel either. Crazy story. Hamilton wins, as they usually do. And those games are always freak shows anyway. So the fact that the score ended up being the way it did, not surprising. And the Grey Cup champions are maybe one game officially of not even making the playoffs this year. Just so sad in Toronto. Also, we'll take a look at, I believe the list now is the, top 10 goalies?
You got it. Top 10 goalies according to NHL.com.
That is, I'll tell you what, of the positions to guess upon about how you're going to do, I think goalies is really hard. And it's a specialty position to begin with, right? So you're the only one of that kind on that team. So if someone said, well, what about a quarterback? I said, quarterback to a degree is similar. But I would say it's more like trying to say, okay, I can give you 10 guys or 5 pitchers who are all going to win 20 games. Be careful with that. Maybe on paper they look like it. Maybe their team looks like. But I find, Dave, with specialty positions, it's a lot harder than when you're playing like with a team. So regular shifts or in basketball, then you're on the court, you're on there for, 30 minutes plus. Different positions in those sports allow themselves to, you're kind of playing with other guys. But when it's a singular specialty position, I can look at it and say, well, I believe that, Braden Holtby's going to play a certain way or Pekka Rinne. But as we know, injury being one of them.
Yep.
Maybe the first and foremost. So do I see someone out of the blue having some miracle season? That's even harder to do depending on how you view what is out of the blue. Like if Murray has a great season, is that really out of the blue? Probably isn't.
No, probably isn't. And yeah.
Like Martin Jones. If Martin Jones or John Gibson.
John Gibson's part of that top 10, but the example I'll give is this, and it's one that Leaf fans will probably like. Fred Anderson is a top 10 goaltender behind one of the worst defenses in hockey. That's a compliment to how good Fred Anderson is. Now, if Fred Anderson moves to, the Tampa Bay style of defense or what Nashville has for their top 6 or what the Winnipeg Jets have for that top 6, does he elevate into a top 5? Maybe. Or maybe we find out how good Fred Anderson really is. Because it works both ways. You can have that argument on both ways of the street, right? But for what he's done so far as a member of the Maple Leafs, and I know this city blows it way out of proportion calling him a Vezina Trophy winner, and whoever has said that is borderline stupid, Fred Anderson is still a pretty good goalie.
Well, there were some magical things that happened on the weekend. The mind wanders, goes into different depths. As you can imagine, this mind. What do you think I did on the weekend? Did I gamble on football? Absolutely. Was I imagining myself that I played on some of those college teams and it was me?
I'm going to say yes.
You can bet on that.
Yeah.
You can take that one to the bank. Was I stealing A.J. McCarron's wife? Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And Brent Musburger, you are not creepy for saying that if you're in Alabama, you start throwing a football because then you get Catherine Webb. That is just men's math. So get off his back. And then the other things that I was doing on the weekend, well, I was tricking squirrels. Oh, yes. Oh, crafty that they are. You know the bird feeders? The bird feeders, well, I read somewhere because the squirrels kept climbing up the thing and getting all the seeds from the good birds. And you know who you are, the good birds, the cardinals, the blue jays, even little chickadees. Those
and
other
they
ones.
and they listen to the show.
Oh,
Yeah.
Huge fans of the show. But the squirrels, no, not as much. So you put Vaseline on the actual bird feeder pole, and this is how I amuse myself this weekend. Let's have a look. There's the backyard that has the...
Come on, Squirrely, it's too tempting. Those delicious seeds.
Is it
Dangling
PBS special or
sweetly
what?
above your head. Just try the pole, my friend. Try it. Richards 1, Squirrels nothing.
Yeah, there you go. See? That's what I did.
Outstanding. Does the squirrel come back?
They try to... They are little buggers.
Yeah,
Like
'cause, I mean, they're relentless. Right?
they go up into the taller trees
Yeah.
and they hurl themselves and try to,
Good, yeah. A WWE move.
but wing, and they can't hold on because they got Vaseline all over it.
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You set up drinks, Ryan Gingers, and watch that for a
sit
couple of
there.
hours. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm cutting the cord, right? Don't need TV. I got squirrels. You're watching rawmike.richards.com, either on the dedicated YouTube channel or on the website itself. Subscribe, as we see that you are doing. By the way, speaking of college football, we'll get to some comments, not surprisingly, made by Nick Saban that a lot of people weren't real big on. He was nasty to a reporter. It's not the first time, and trust me, it won't be the last time. He's tried to backtrack a little bit, but that should last about an hour. When you're a college coach at one of the, if not the nation's biggest program, so you're coaching in the SEC, or you're Chip Kelly at UCLA, you're the head coach in one of these major programs, you are one step away at times to just being God. You just have the power of God, which is why in years gone by, so many of these coaches have literally got away with murder. This is where the problem comes in, because they're literally more powerful than the governor. Saban would certainly be in that category. So we'll take a look at that. But I guess we'll also take a look, as we mentioned before, Labor Day. You had some surprising games, and I think for the Calgary Stampeders, they kind of got away with one, the scariest issue. And players were dropping, Dave, all over the place. It started to look like one of those cheesy Civil War reenactment loser things. Have you seen those?
I have not.
Yeah. I'm aware of them. I just can't go to it. To see Stan pretend that he's some lieutenant colonel or whatever in Kentucky, and he's wearing like Nikes and has like a watch on, and he's got his iPhone. Stan, honestly, really?
You know who does that a lot?
Who?
Coach Frank.
Oh, is he a big Civil War reenactment guy? Didn't see that coming.
And I said, Frank, you're wearing your Apple Watch. They didn't have that back in the Civil War. And he's like, shut up, Dave.
Yeah, I didn't realize a lot of Italians in the okay, there must have been. But for Bo Levi Mitchell, he talks about with Jermaine Franklin from TSN, so property of Bell. But do you like the headband? Let's have a listen, because of course we still at this point really don't know the severity of what's going on with Bo's leg.
Well, Bo, it wasn't pretty, but you guys pulled off their 7th straight Labor Day Classic win. How would you describe the game?
Yeah, gritty, man. I mean, that's what these games are. They always have been. Like I said, no matter what these records are, the Stanton A's always play the game tight. We knew it was probably going to come down to a field goal, especially we lost KJ there. Got some guys banged up today, man, but that's what this football is, and that's playoff football too, so I'm glad we're starting to play like that.
Yeah, the privilege of being on the sideline, saw some of the things that you guys had to go through, including yourself. How are you feeling with your knee?
I'm good, man. It's gonna, like I said, you got to take my leg off to get me out of this game. I know it's probably not the smartest thing to go back in, but I'm always going to fight for my team, and until the point where I can't play, I'm going back out there to try and help them get a win.
Well, that is Bo Levi Mitchell, and again, people are like, good. Put the brace on, get out there. Now, Arbuckle, who's the backup, but you get in one of these situations, and we saw it a lot in the NFL last year, Dave. if the second guy isn't really capable of coming in, you're in big trouble. I don't care what league you're in. Quarterbacks just do not grow on trees. You're going to see a lot of them in the NFL this year. A lot of guys who are looking for either a great second year or they're, like if you're Patrick Mahomes, what are you going to do in Kansas City? But in the CFL, sometimes, just because of the nature of the game, how many games they play, like literally who is your second guy? And I think for the Calgary Stampeders, they're hoping that they don't go to Arbuckle. Not that he's not of substance, but you have to realize that
there's a pretty big drop off between Bo Levi Mitchell and Nick Arbuckle.
His record, his wins, his passing, like he's going to end up having almost every record. I don't know if people really is. I mean, quietly has become literally in terms of stats. He passed Henry Burris. He's passed Doug Flutie. Like it's weird, but he has been that good.
Yeah, he has. And it was funny too because at the start of the game there was a little bit of a talking, matchup between Don Jackson and a member of the Edmonton Eskimos, and Jackson almost seemed like he came out of it for the worse because he had that big fumble that cost them probably points. A little bit later on in another drive, he dropped an outlet pass that he basically had 15 yards to go for a touchdown. And this is one of their top guys. He ran for 115 yards and has been a very good running back for the team all season long. But they squeezed it out. I thought it was going to be a close game to begin with. But you know what? There's a pretty good argument to be made in Edmonton this morning if you're reviewing what you saw the day before. That should have been their win.
Yeah, it should have been. I mean, they were full marks probably in winning it. So the return game also harder to win.
Very. For
whatever reason that's going to be. We'll get to some questions in Winnipeg, what they do back on the other side, because I think they have to look at it. We'll talk about Chris Streveler and just,
And back to the headband. Are you yay or nay with the headband?
Nay, completely no.
I'm completely nay. I don't know if it's because I saw Matt Nichols with it and he's starting to piss me off just when I look at him.
It's just,
but I don't like the look.
No, Kelly Rudy, right?
Did you like it?
And I know Kelly Rudy. I like his Kelly.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I was gonna say, did you like the Kelly Rudy look when he took off the old Jofa and he had the head? It's like I don't know if I like that either.
No, bad.
Okay,
bad Kelly Rudy.
Is there anybody in sport that has worn a headband outside of John McEnroe and you've sat there and you went, okay, I like that?
Yeah, Bjorn Borg.
Okay. So on the same premise of John McEnroe.
Yeah, so and we're also talking the 70s.
Yes.
So
a while ago, I know.
Which means you could be watching Room 222 or Mod Squad, right? I mean, so headbands probably not that, as they'd say, far out.
Far out.
But now, don't just...
Oh, you know what?
Remember when Rob Johnson used to wear that thing?
Yeah, that looks stupid. You know who I liked in a headband, though? Because he used to mock the commissioner of the NFL at that time? Jim McMahon. Chicago Bears
he did that. Yeah, he did that.
But I like Jim McMahon in general, so I thought that was great.
Jim McMahon, one of the all-time pricks of all time.
Big time.
And typical of BYU guys. If they were playing their grandmother in tennis, they would be smoking those serves, making these cross-court shots. That's BYU. Sorry, but it's true. But we'll get to Streveler, who, by the way, when you talk to anyone from South Dakota, not South Dakota State, that's the Jackrabbits. We're talking about the Coyotes. Really remarkable how he's revered there. But just before we get to some more football, something weird, and I didn't realize, Brian Glennie, it was his birthday. I don't even know how old Brian Glennie was. I'm not even sure how old. He was known for, when I say Brian Glennie, or do you really not have
I don't have a
recollection?
Yeah,
great.
I know the name, of course.
It was the hip check.
Yes, but I don't have a memory.
Yeah, we'd say, oh yeah, the Brian Glennie hip check. Well, Laney McDonald, our good friend Laney. Hopefully he's listening, because you'll be hearing this obviously right now here on the Fan. What did it say? The Sportsnet, the Fan 960.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
I think you're ready to go.
That's how you say it.
You got it.
Well, you've got Laney McDonald and Brian Glennie in a famous. It was a Hungry Man dinner, and we thought this was this is before people worried about their brand, right? Mm-hmm. Back then, brand wasn't a big thing. But are we not? We don't have this. It should be right there, starred, I believe. It was from the 1970s, and it was a classic. Now, I don't believe Laney had any training at this point, acting training, because, boy, I got to tell you, the acting in this ad is fantastic.
When Brian gets hungry, he goes wild.
So I tame my big appetite with a Swanson Hungry Man dinner.
A man-sized meal with extra meat and all the fixings. The second helping's built right in.
I'm just a meat and potatoes man myself.
Then dig into a hungry man entree. Just meat and potatoes, but big on the meat.
Swanson Hungry Man dinners and entrees are enough to turn a wild man
into a pussycat.
Meow.
That's tremendous acting. Laney, do you have anything to say for yourself? Did you get a lot of money for that?
But we got a couple dinners out of it.
How Canadian is that?
Very.
First of all the fixins. Well, what restaurant do you... I mean, that's how I choose where I go, by the way. If they have... Something comes with all the fixins. And meat and potatoes. Meat and potatoes. That was classic. You're watching RawMikeRichards.com. You're also watching it on the dedicated YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Don't miss a thing. And we just talked about the Bombers, maybe what they might want to do. Chris Streveler. Like the moment that he came out this season, because I obviously didn't know a whole bunch about him. You know, when you're playing South Dakota, you know, you're probably not glued to it. It's not obviously one of the bigger televised schools, certainly nationally, NCAA. But they play, I mean, you talk about that area, North Dakota State. There's a lot of good football down there. And with Chris Streveler, and I was watching, because the game coming up this past weekend in college football, it was South Dakota and Kansas State, which over the years has been a televised program, and they were given a ton of points. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take South Dakota. 2 late touchdowns, and Kansas State edges out South Dakota 27-24, so it was an easy cover. Remember, that's the big thing. No one cares about your favorite team. No one cares that you cheer for someone, that your room is in those colors, that you have pajamas. Win your bet. That's what they did. And by the way, the Streveler fans said not only was he good, they think he's probably one of the, if not the best quarterback they've ever had in the history of their program. And for Bomber fans, they're hoping that maybe they see more of this.
On 2nd and 8, play action fake. Streveler with time, passing to the left for Brooks. He's got it at the 35 and tackled from behind at the 30-yard line. 7 of 14 against Youngstown State last week. Streveler toward the end zone for Van Roekel. He's got it! Touchdown! Touchdown, South Dakota! Here's the handoff to Booker, and Booker has some running room at the 30. Outside, he gets to the 25, 20, 15, and finally ridden down. The snap, the place, and
they're playing Indiana State, by the way.
Right through and good. And Streveler with a rollout now will come back, and he's looking long for BBR. He's got it. He's at the 5. Touchdown! Touchdown, South Dakota.
Guy's big, eh? He's just
hand it off to Booker in the trench to get some.
Okay, we don't care about the tackles.
Coyotes lead 14-6. Handoff Klett again, straight ahead, first down and more. And he's still turning up to the 35-yard line.
See, physically, he's also a bigger guy. And I think
pass over the middle, and it's caught by Larkin, but not for much. Streveler from an empty backfield to throw again. Looking toward the end zone for Case. He's got it! Touchdown! Touchdown, South Dakota! A 35-yard touchdown pass.
No, granted. Yeah, there's the sound of the coyote.
Thank you. Russell was wondering why I was doing that.
This is hopefully what Bomber fans are going to see now. At some point, Michael O'Shea, I get why he's protecting his starter. It's kind of how that works in almost any league, or supposed to. So I do appreciate that there is that kind of loyalty. But at some point, it's going to be about wins. And playing Saskatchewan, I think you need every kind of advantage you can get. And I think the fact that they haven't seen a ton of Streveler might be the right thing to do. Does he get a start, or do they start Nichols again next week?
Nichols starts again next week, but this might be the last time he does start, or at least the last time he starts until they make that quarterback change. The Bombers are in some trouble right now as far as the playoffs are concerned in the West. The only thing that's kind of propping them up is, and this might be the best move for them as well, but I don't think anybody will ever admit that. If they finish 4th in the West, they could still cross over because they do have a better record than Toronto and Montreal. And I like the Bombers to do a hell of a lot better in the East than they do in the West, especially since you'd have to go past Calgary, Saskatchewan, Edmonton. That'd be a lot tougher road to travel. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens this weekend. I think they split the series with Saskatchewan. That's been the case the last 3 years. You lose in Saskatchewan, you win in Winnipeg, and you move on with week number 14 after that. So we'll have to see. But if they do get swept by the Rough Riders, there will be a quarterback change because something has to be done sooner than later if they fall into a 4-game losing streak.
I also said on Twitter that I was going to talk about frauds. So either a player that's overrated, player that is considered to be, again, better than what he is, and that also goes for franchises and teams as well. So I don't know why it was occurring to me because we have the kickoff of the NFL. It's Thursday night's the first one.
Thursday nights, yep.
Now, have you done a review for Sports Interaction? And by the way, Rusty, if you can find how people join up that video that we ran, we're gonna play that probably all week, so you can cash in on Sports Interaction, giving you up to $200 of your initial deposit. So you put in $200, it's going to be $400. Is there a better time, seriously, right before the NFL to do that? So we'll get to that that how-to in just moments. But Dave, looking at this coming up, obviously in your back on the Sportsnet radio network.
Yeah, across the radio network, across Western Canada, of course, in Calgary and Vancouver, in Toronto. And yes, Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Mountain Time, which is the better time of the two. This Thursday, right now, Eagles are home to the Falcons. We know that Nick Foles will start for the Eagles, and we know that the Eagles are 2.5-point favorites. There has been some talk by kickoff. That number could bulge up to 3. Wait until that time if you're going to go on the Falcons like I am right now.
So looking at what I consider, and once again, I'll use the term frauds. If you're a Miami Dolphin fan, why? Why are you a fan of a team that clearly either doesn't care, which is hard to do when it's a multi-billion-dollar industry when you're in the NFL? Mm-hmm. Are your people really not that good at recognizing talent? Like, where do you say to your fan base that we want to win? Not just make a wild card playoff. I mean, you're either in it to win it or you're not in it at all. And if you're a Dolphin fan, man, I don't know why you would be. And so I thought, just how futile has it been since the Dan Marino era, for instance. So I went back to 2001. So in 2001, they lose in a wild card to the Ravens, 20-3. The record that year was 11-5. The next time they make a wild card playoff is 7 years later. The record in that time, 9-7, 10-6, 4-12, 9-7, 6-10, and 1-15. 2008 wildcard playoff, they lose to the Ravens once again, 27-9. That was 2008. Skip ahead, they don't get back into 2016. So another 8 years goes by where they're 7-9, 7-9, 6-10, 7-9, 8-8, 8-8, 6-10. They're 10-6, and they make it to a wild card. And they lose to the Steelers 30-12. And, of course, we're coming up to 2018. So you're telling me in 17 years, the best you have done is losing in 3 wildcard playoff games with abysmal records? And who is the talent that you have brought in to make your team better?
Do you want to hear it?
Okay, let's hear this.
Okay,
and I know Cleo Lemon's going to be one of them.
Yeah, you got it. Since Dan Marino, Jay Fiedler, 4.5 seasons, Gus Farrat, Dante Culpepper, Trent Green, Chad Pennington, Chad Henne, Ryan Tannenhill, Mike Moore, Tyler Thigpen, John Beck, Cleo Lemon, Joey Harrington, Sage Rosenfeld, A.J. Feely, Brian Greasy, Ray Lucas, Damon Heward, and, of course, Craig the Man Erickson. I don't think that's his nickname, but
yeah, he's gonna get if he was a wrestler, maybe
Craig the Man.
But that to me is literally inexcusable,
as Russell would say, terrible.
Because he's good with French and the ladies. But honestly, why would you continue? Now, do you have a fraud? Because that's my fraud. That as a team.
As a team.
Yeah.
Well, if you're staying in the same state, I'll say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are pretty fraudulent just because they seem to get their stuff in order and then all of a sudden they fade off. They've won their Super Bowl in 2003, and since that time, they've changed what was a decent uniform into maybe the worst uniform in sport, and they seem to have problems actually putting talent on the field where you have everything going for you, decent ownership, a nice field. You're playing in Tampa Bay. Who doesn't want to live in Tampa Bay?
Everybody.
And that's the garbage that they have to see. I think the best part about living in Tampa Bay might be the Pirate Festival, and that's pretty sad. Mike, back to you.
Yeah. And Hall of Famer Alex is going, yeah, I know. Yeah, Alex, but think about it. Your favorite football team is the Tampa Bay. I was going to say that. Forget it. I'm not going to say the Buccaneers. I was going to say something else because I'm trying to clean it up. I'm trying to be a better person. I know it won't work. But the Philadelphia 76ers, and that's previous to getting like the top 10 best players in the last 10 years that they've been. Like, he's been a 76ers and a Buccaneers fan.
Been a Buccaneers fan forever.
Like, that's just heavy drinking right there.
And he's big time.
And Russian. He's Russian in his background.
Or so he says.
So
Ted Nisbet on our live Twitter feed worldwide at rawmike.richards.com. I was a Dolphins fan as a kid, but then I grew up.
Yeah, but here's the thing. And when someone says they're a Dolphin fan, I can guess how old they are.
Bingo.
Because they're going back to a different Greasy.
Bingo.
They're going back to the Don Shula, kick and Larry Zonka, and just the undefeated era, a time where like it was not fun to play the Miami Dolphins. Mm-hmm. They were a level of excellence that was still revered today. Do you know still when people don't go undefeated and break their record, they still pop champagne?
That's a lot of champagne.
But
pretty annoying too.
But don't you think? All right, guys.
Yeah.
It was in the early 70s. Might want to give it up. I don't know. Like when it looked like New England was going to do it, and then they didn't do it. They're still popping champagne. I guess it's something to hold on to. I gotta be honest, Miami, maybe that's the only thing you got, because I just don't understand what they're doing there. You're watching rawmike.richards.com or on the dedicated YouTube channel right now. We mentioned with the NFL coming up, this is the time that you want to get with Sports Interaction, obviously our sponsor and our partner. They have the best deal. So people are always wondering, well, how do I do this? So for those of you watching, this is like a PSA. Here's a way in which to show you a how-to on how Sports Interaction wants to give you money. Here's Russell Graham. Russell Graham doesn't have a girlfriend,
but he can have a sportsinteraction.com account.
Right you are, Dave. Here's Russell going to the site. It's so simple, even Russell can do it. And he's mentally challenged.
But he will need some help.
Look at him filling it out. It's that easy and fun to do. But Russell's thinking to himself, how do I get that money? How do I get the up to $200? Here's how. You simply go to the drop-down menu. Look at Russell and the fun he's having. So what if his mother's knocking outside his door? This time it's not about magazines, it's this. He clicks on Raw Mike Richards, and any wager up to $200, Sports Interaction will match it. It's that simple. That money is yours. From Sports Interaction and rawmike.richards.com. Wow, look at that. That's better acting than Lanny did.
That's really good. That's right up there.
Lanny's probably jealous now going, I never was able to act like Richards.
That how Lanny talks?
He sounds a little bit like Marge Simpson. I'm just saying. By the way, if we're talking about Calgary and their team that they're going to ice this year,
yes.
Mike Smith was excellent before he got hurt. He came back not as excellent. Are we expecting him to have a season if we're looking at goalies? Because I don't know. I couldn't say. I like him. Look, I've always liked the guy.
I think so. I think Mike Smith is more than capable of coming back to where he was. He started off a little bit slow, had a really good year until he got injured near the end. We do have some breaking Calgary Flame news from this morning. Jeff Glass has signed a professional tryout contract with the Calgary Flames, a depth goaltender will challenge for the backup spot, likely not to win that spot, but nonetheless, the Flames will use him in the American Hockey League, and he could be recalled. He could be there just in case there is another injury. Spent some time with the Chicago Blackhawks last year. He's already 32 years old and a seasoned veteran goaltender that does have some World Junior experience back in the day. Because
that was a big deal back then.
I was going to say a lot of people forget about that, but Jeff Glass was part of that Sidney Crosby World Junior team where everybody was awesome on the team except the goaltenders. I'm just saying, just the truth. I'm sorry.
That's why I said, trying to predict, goaltending. So according to NHL.com, they came out with their list once again. What do you think? How did they fare? I think the centers is what you ripped apart, or the right wing? I'm trying to remember which one.
Centers is what I ripped apart. Right wing wasn't bad. They made a couple mistakes. Goaltender looks like this in the top 10. Let's start off at number 10 with John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks. Could be higher if he puts together healthy seasons. That's been a concern with John Gibson ever since he entered the NHL, playing a regular 65 to 70 games like a true starter. He could be a lot higher. Fred Anderson comes in at number 9 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Has played very well in front of a defense that is very American Hockey League-ish. Tuukka Rask at number 8 is kind of an aging goaltender now. It's kind of funny to hear an aging goaltender because I still remember Tuukka Rask being drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs and then giving up prospect Tuukka Rask to the Boston Bruins to some guy named Andrew Raycroft, in which is one of the best trades in Toronto Maple Leafs history.
You tend to bring that up from time to time, I notice.
I do. At number 7, the defending Vezina Trophy candidate and winner, Pekka Rinne, who will not win it ever again, especially after what he did in Game 7 against the Winnipeg Jets in the Western Conference semifinals. Marc-Andre Fleury has had an awesome bounce back from a career in Pittsburgh where he was the backup the last number of years. He's played very well in Vegas. He comes in at number 6. I don't know if he can do it again, Mike. I'm not saying that he's...
I think it'd be very difficult. Like, I'm with you on this one, and I like him too.
To duplicate that would be tough. Jonathan Quick at number 5, which makes a lot of sense. This is a very good goaltender. Health has been an issue with Jonathan Quick as well. The Kings are looking pretty decent this year. They've stocked up on some free agents. They've made some trades. I wonder if the Kings make that jump into top 3 in the Pacific. Jonathan Quick will have everything to do with it. At number 4 is Connor Hellerbuck. A lot of people will sit there and say, well, he's had one good season. Let's not forget, this guy has 200 NHL games under his belt. Last year was his breakout season, and damn, was it a good breakout season. He is now the all-time leader in a single season for American goalies in wins in the history of the game. That's how good he's been. At number 3, here's my first problem with the list, because I could juggle some of these before, but here's my first problem. Andrei Vasilevskiy at number 3.
I think that's that almost seems like one of those picks that they make because it's the sexy one, it's the current one, it's the one that, a really small sample size. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not putting him ahead of Hellerbuck.
And he is playing behind a steel curtain type defense, maybe the best defense in the NHL. For sure it is going to be this year with some of the new pickups the Lightning have made. If the Lightning don't win the Atlantic Division, there should be an investigation, and Andrei Vasilevskiy will not have to be great for them to win.
If Hellerbuck plays for Tampa Bay, does Tampa Bay get by Washington?
Yes.
I think they.
I think they do.
That's the test to me.
And I'll also say, speaking of Washington, Braden Holtby, Stanley Cup champion Braden Holtby. There's going to be some that sit there and argue, is he number 1? In my opinion, I think he is. Fantasy-wise, though, and a lot of people will be picking this, Sergei Bobrovsky of the Columbus Blue Jackets, a lot of shutouts. He'll play 70 games. He'll get in a really good goals against. He has the sexy numbers to put him at number 1. The surprising goaltender that's not on this list is maybe the world's greatest goaltender when he's healthy, and we're talking about Carey Price. Can he have a bounce-back season, a healthy bounce-back season with the Canadiens? I think he can, but what he's playing in front of is borderline terrible. I think Montreal is a lottery pick, to tell you the honest truth.
In French, the word is merde.
Yeah, that is exactly it.
Yeah.
Russell's been talking to you, too, before the show. So that's the only surprise I have there. I thought maybe Carey Price would be a little more respected, considering he's Canada's best goaltender. And if there was an Olympic Games yesterday, he would have been part of it. But there's starting to be that argument that Braden Holtby might be the guy that is pushing Carey Price. And you know what? If I'm sitting there in a Canadian net and I have Carey Price, Braden Holtby, 1 and 2 on my team, I think we're looking pretty good as far as capturing another gold medal. That's another story for another time. That's your top 10 on NHL.com. Goaltenders, and maybe tomorrow we'll break down some of their top 50s, because there's a lot of top 50 lists coming up of players altogether. Best top 50 players, goalies, forwards, defensemen, everything.
Yeah, Dave, I also think that, when you start talking about Tuukka Rask, last year was, it's strange to say this, but it was a bit of a bounce back year for him a little bit. Like he certainly had a much better year, but I think when you start talking about goaltending and who's playing at what level, again, it goes back to the specialty sort of position that they play, the singular position that they play on that team, and it's injuries. Mm-hmm. It's, football, Aaron Rodgers goes down. Well, if Huntley comes in, good luck. I mean, you really got to sort of be careful on who you think is going to have a strong year. If I'm looking at, and I have to put it this way, a track record of health, which is why I think Braden Holtby hasn't had necessarily some of the big physical, questions or injuries in his career so far. I mean, he hasn't been injury-free. But I think if I'm looking at these guys and some of that longevity, you have to equate into how many times are they going to play. John Gibson, since he came from the Kitchener Rangers, and we saw him play in the World Juniors, to me, he looked like just that kind of stud goalie that at some point, if he goes to the right team, well, both Dave and I predicted that he would be holding a lot of hardware, but he just hasn't played enough.
Nope.
He just hasn't been healthy enough.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We'll see what Braden Holtby does this year, because it's funny. He wins the Stanley Cup last year, and during the regular season itself may have been his worst regular season as a starter, because he lost his job to Philip Grubauer, and a lot of people forget this, but Philip Grubauer is the guy that started in Game 1 and Game 2 of this year's Cup playoffs and lost the job. Holtby took over and turned into the Holtby we saw him 2 years ago. This year, he doesn't have that Philip Grubauer behind him. He has Phoenix Copley, who is a young goaltender. I don't know if he's considered a rookie, but if he plays more than 15 to 20 games, there's problems in Washington, because it should be Braden Holtby's 70-plus games. He'll play Marty Brodeur-like time, but we'll see if he can continue that Stanley Cup non-hangover, because a lot of people sit there and say, do they have a hangover?
Yeah.
Do they have a hangover?
Yeah.
We'll see what he can do this year with not so much protection behind him.
I also think, too, if you're looking at Marc-Andre Fleury and what he do by the numbers, well, then you have to, again, put into the equation that you believe somehow that the Vegas Knights are going to do the same thing they did last year, or at least even remotely close to it. I just don't see that happening 2 years in a row.
Oh, I don't either. I could sit there and tell you right now, and I know a lot of people are going to laugh because they know where I'm coming from, I could see them not making the playoffs.
See, I still think that they're probably a bubble team. I think that, if we're talking about the bottom 2 wild card, I don't know how far they drop, but it would almost be shocking if they fell right out of it.
It could be, but but
people are expecting that. See, that's how angry people, bitter people.
Yeah, I'd fit into that category. I'll admit that. I'll admit that any day. See, the other thing too is what they have going against them is how strong the Central Division is, because realistically, the Central Division might house 5 playoff teams. So if you're not top 3 in the Pacific, and you sit there and you go, okay, well, San Jose Sharks, are they a lock? Probably. The Anaheim Ducks, are they a lock? I think so. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you go, the Flames have an argument. The Oilers have to have a bounce back that a lot of people thought they were going to have. Last year, a lot of people, don't forget this, last year at this time, a lot of people were thinking Edmonton Oilers Western Conference.
I know, bust. I did.
So don't sit there and go, oh, Edmonton. No, Edmonton's not going to suck this year. Calgary's not going to suck this year. Vegas isn't going to crap the bed. And then there's Washington again. Washington signing some pretty good free agents. Remember, Mr. Russia comes over and signs. He signs with the Los Angeles Kings. They have Jonathan Quick as well. I think there's a dogfight for that top 3 spots. Is there going to be a 4th spot? I don't think so. All 5 playoff spots are going to the Central Division, including the 2 wild cards. And the Pacific will be very tough just to get into that 3, and may the best 3 win, right?
See, getting back to, and we talked about Tampa Bay in the playoffs, I'm looking at Kucherov, who was all world to me. Like, he really was fantastic. Did they fall off this year? Did they drop down, or are they still in that? If we're saying top 3 in the East, is Toronto in the top 3?
I'm gonna say borderline 3. Now you're talking conference. I'm gonna say, going back to your Tampa conversation, I think Tampa Bay wins the Atlantic. I think Toronto is in the number 2 spot. Number 2 spot overall in the conference, pretty damn close. I think they fall into the 2-3, but that doesn't really make much of a difference because your 1 seeds get your bye. So you'll have your Metropolitan Division champion, Pittsburgh Penguins, and you'll have your Atlantic Division champion, Tampa Bay Lightning, and then you'll have, Toronto will have home ice advantage for the first round of the playoffs, and then they're going to have that ultimate showdown with Tampa Bay, which features good goaltending, excellent defense on one side, piss poor defense on the other side, and awesome offense on both sides of the ice.
So we're basically saying, I mean, to be blunt about it, you're expecting you can't call them the Edmonton Oilers of that era, but you're expecting those kinds of games where you win 6-5?
I'm expecting more of that than not. Yeah, if you want to play sports interaction wise, you're going to be playing a lot of overs with the Toronto Maple Leafs because they're going to score them and they're going to let them in.
Russell, this is your opportunity. We go to the Russ Cam. I know that you have been practicing at being a better orator, to be better on the air. Great to have you back.
I think he's been doing well.
Yeah. What do you think? Are we looking at games that on average when you start talking about sports interaction and totals, 5.5 used to be kind of the norm.
They're going to be 6s.
Now there's 6s. I've seen 6.5s. Are we looking at that on a regular basis for the Maple Leafs? You as a Leaf fan.
I would say more often than not, but I'm more on the side that their defense can use improvements, but only 10 teams in the leagues had less goals scored on. They were in the top 10 for goals against, and their defense hasn't changed that much. That's with a Zaitsev who is injured or sick all season. I think Travis Dermott is much better than a guy like Roman Polak to have all season.
Ron Hainsey's back.
I don't think
Connor Carrick is back.
Yeah, but I don't think they will be. They're not going to be great. Don't get me wrong. I would love for the defense to improve, and I don't think this is the defense they'll have going into the playoffs.
I don't know if you noticed, Russell, because you're so excited that you're on the microphone, but there was a lot of moaning. There was a lot of moaning and groaning over here while you were speaking. Was that unnerving for you?
I think he's used to it. See, the other thing, just adding on to Russell's point, the other thing is they sit there and they talk about how they were 10th. They're playing against arguably the biggest pile of garbage division in the NHL. They have Tampa, Boston, and Toronto, and that's it. You get to play Detroit. You get to play Buffalo. You get to play Montreal. You get to play Ottawa. These are some of the bottom feeders in sport, not only in the league, in sport. God, if they don't finish in the top 3 playing half the schedule, I think that would be an embarrassment to any one of those top 3 teams.
So Montreal's a lottery team.
Lottery team, yes. Ottawa's a lottery team. And yes, the Avalanche are sitting there smiling because it's not even Ottawa's pick, you losers, with your loser trade during the regular season for your loser team. Loser city, too.
Yeah, losers.
Anyway, so you sit there and you go,
sorry.
Buffalo's not going to be a lottery team, but Buffalo's going to flirt with lotteryness. I know that's not a name, but it is today.
Okay, let's talk about lotteryness. Who also is flirting with lottery? What about the Vancouver
Canucks should put that on their jersey.
Change it to Lottery City?
They should. They should put OLG logos on their jerseys, thinking that they are sponsored, but no, really they're a lottery team.
BCLC or whatever it's called out there. WCLC.
Yeah, it is different, isn't it? Because there's Western Canadian, then there's the BC, and then there's the OLG, and whatever.
It's hard to play Pro Line out there. But then again, why are we playing Pro Line? Because
you
don't have to anymore.
Sports Interaction because you get a hell of a lot better numbers. And all those losers out there, by the way, speaking of losers, all the losers out there that are tweeting me their Pro Line picks, I sit there and I go, okay, you bet 5 games and you won your $200, but if you actually break down the odds, you probably could have won $500 on those same 5 bets on Sports Interaction. So get into 2018 and get some real numbers and get some numbers that actually change with the times, not the cement head garbage that you get fed for the government. I mean, do I have to teach how to drive a car too? I mean, there's so many different options. Go to the option that's going to pay you the most and the easiest. You could sit on your ass at home and play on Sports Interaction on your phone or on your laptop and get the best numbers rather than going to Max and talking to, okay, I'm not going to say that, but nonetheless, you're going to get garbage when you go to the store and waste your time. Don't waste your time.
See, and people listening here today, especially on Sportsnet, the Fan 960, you saw how often that I won, and I won the big one. Obviously, the first year I was out there, it was like $21,000.
I used to play that too, back when they never had everything.
Okay, just so you know, I haven't played Pro Line in 8 years. People are like, what? You were the king. Yeah, but I realized I was the king at winning numbers and money that was so stacked against me. It's a miracle that I won it all.
Bingo.
So when we start talking about Sports Interaction, this is why I'm saying, you might as well join something that there's more money, the odds are better, you can stay at home, yet you don't have to go down to 7-Eleven or Max or what is that, Circle K or whatever that new one is.
Or Russell's favorite, Piggly Wigglies.
Piggly Wiggly. Oh, God, I love the Piggly Wiggly.
Piggly Wigglies. Yeah. They got to have more of those throughout Canada, not just in certain places.
Yeah, so guess what? I will be pushing this. So you're going to hear it. Obviously a business partner, but at the same time, I want you to win. I want to see you with cash. So before the NFL gets here, we already played it once today. We'll probably do it throughout the week so you know how to do this because they're going to give you up to $200 back. I mean, did Pro Line ever do that? I'm sorry. I don't remember the OLG or the WCLC. I don't recall them saying, hey, if you put down $50, we'll give you another $50. That never happened.
Ever.
So don't so listen, you know that I'm going to be honest with you. I'm always honest with you. I don't play Pro Line anymore. I haven't for 8 years because there's no reason to do that. And here's the other thing. You can live in play. So, a couple of teams start sucking. Make up a new one. Just make up a new one as it continues. Play.
And speaking of that, I went in play yesterday when the Argos took the lead in the third quarter. I went in play Hamilton Ticats because I knew they were going to win that game.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, totally. That's how you play it. So that's what we talk about. Make sure you do it. And again, we'll talk about it throughout the week so you can get into that game. Or into the game. Oh, that's kind of theirs. But
yeah, it is.
We will tell you how to get money before it because obviously we'll have our picks. The Victor Newman. Passionate picks. We'll be back. You know what we haven't done is the Paul Stanley.
We haven't. Rock and roll picks of
love.
Love, yeah, that's right.
Rock and roll picks of love.
Maybe we'll have to bring that back too.
Here's what isn't love.
Uh-oh.
Talking to Nick Saban after any game, the one biggest problem he has is he got 2 quarterbacks. Was it Tagovailoa? Tua is what they call him, so they avoid saying the last name. So it's Tua, and he's getting a little frustrated on constantly asking who is your starter going to be. Well, right now they have decided they're going to start the season with both guys, so Saban's getting a little tired of the question. What is your feeling when you watch this clip? A reporter who asked to ask the question, like it's not like it's a stupid question. Mm-hmm. The game is over. They blow out Louisville. And now she wants to know, what did you see from each guy? She didn't say that one is better than the other. She didn't, vilify one of the quarterbacks. She's just asking a very fair question, I think.
All right, Coach, everyone had questions about who was going to start at quarterback when this game started. What answers did you have about your quarterbacks after watching both of them play tonight?
Well, I still like both guys. I think both guys are good players. I think both guys can help our team. All right, so why do you continually try to get me to say something that doesn't respect one of them? I'm not going to, so quit asking.
I hear you.
Okay, so that she continues on, but Did you cringe a little bit there?
Yep.
Like I said, these are very powerful men who literally could be more powerful than the governor of their state. Thusly the problems you see from time to time with these programs, because there is so much power that comes with being the head coach of a major program in the SEC. This one happens to be Alabama. Enormously strong. This is a press conference that follows that. And I just get the feeling that, because this is another excellent team. But if you've had time to think about how you conducted yourself on national television, that would have been a hugely watched game because it's Bama. They're gonna watch the Tide. They're gonna watch them. This is probably moments later on again, sponsored by Camping World. Listen to the tone to the reporters, and once again, Dave, you've done this job. You know what it's like to
it's brutal.
Follow these guys. Here is Nick Saban once again.
So we always have 24 hours to enjoy the game, and I certainly want the players to do that. I mean, they can wear their sweats home tonight, and they can be happy for 24 hours, but we got lots of work to do. We got a lot of things that we need to clean up. We got a lot of things we need to improve. I thought special teams was really good in the game, but also we take a touchdown off the board because we hit somebody in the back, and we hit him in the back. And it was a bad decision to hit him in the back, and it wasn't even a block we needed to make for the guy to run for a touchdown. So if I sound a little bit pissed, you're right, I am. All right, so, be careful.
Be careful. You can ask the next question. Which quarterback do you think was better? Where's Jermaine Franklin?
Yeah.
What quarterback do you think was the best one?
My favorite coaching, and I'm just saying this in general, my favorite coaching answers are the ones that, just like Nick Saban did to that lady previous on the post game, is the one that sits there and says, "You guys," meaning you're representing everybody that's ever asked me a question about that. You know who else used to do that a lot? Ron Wilson. When I covered Ron Wilson when he was the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, he used to sit there and he'd have battles with a number of press people, and it's, you guys did this, and it could have been anybody, but it's like, you guys have asked that question. No, I've never asked that question.
Yeah,
don't give me the you guys BS, and that was a BS answer, and he could have handled that a million times better. And somebody that's been in football for the last 300 years should know better, especially considering that he runs the #1 program in the last decade.
He has apologized to Maria. That is the reporter.
I didn't know her name.
He has previously. And he had said that, upon thinking about it, it wasn't the right approach. But the reality is that, and there is such a thing as heat of the moment. But they blew out Louisville. It wasn't like they played a horrible game and one of the quarterbacks cost them with poor play. And I don't believe for 1 second that this means you're going to see a kinder, gentler Nick Saban. It's just not going to be that. And to me, the example, look, are they under pressure? Of course they are. But I just think at some point, I don't believe that he's not going to chop the head off of somebody. And to me, it's the kind of poor form that, makes, I think, those that want to be in this industry and be on the other side and ask those questions, I wouldn't want the job. I just wouldn't want the job because I don't think he's going to change. I mean, did Ron Wilson ever change?
Nope.
I mean, John Torts is different because he had really one antagonist, and Brooksy was that guy, so it went back and forth. But I don't know necessarily if he had a horrible reputation with other people asking questions. Did he? I
thought he was pretty good. The only time he'd ever turn it up is when he actually came to Toronto. Because it's funny, because whatever team he brought to Toronto, if it was the Canucks, the Blue Jackets, the Lightning, whoever the hell he was coaching, the Rangers, of course, where he really blew up at times, and you almost seem to see a video of John Tortorella every week. Something about sitting in front of 40 annoying press people got to John Tortorella more than his regular of 5 or 6. So, I even remember going to Tampa Bay a number of times because you're in the division and so forth. And Tortorella would walk in and say, we're playing the Leafs tonight. I could tell there's hundreds of you. So it's almost like he gets psyched up to.
Sure, he understands. He gets it.
I think he gets it. And, honestly, away from the camera, away from the other 39 people. Really good guy.
Well, here's the thing, too.
Really good guy.
I remember having some...
Loves dogs, too.
A lot of conversations with Hitchcock.
Yep.
And I remember saying to the players, hey, he's a pretty good guy, eh? He goes, what? Hitch is pretty... He goes, really? Ever played for him? He goes, ever played for him? I go, yes. There's the difference, right?
And you know what? He has changed, too, dramatically. Like, my first job, this is aging me a little bit, my first job was as a TV op behind the scenes at a station called ITV in Edmonton, and I used to volunteer in the sports department, holding the microphone at Oilers games for visitor and home locker rooms. And Hitchcock was basically in his prime as far as being a head coach of a powerful Stanley Cup contending Dallas Stars team that had guys like Ed Balfour and Jamie Langenbrunner and you name it. They were there. Mike Modano, of course, was the captain of the team.
And that's the Brett Hull team, right?
That was the Brett Hull team. That Hitch is substantially different than the Hitch that just finished his tour with the St. Louis Blues. And as a young guy in the industry at that time, holding a microphone up to a guy like Ken Hitchcock, if you probably had an ISO shot of me, my hand may have been shaking because you did not want to say the wrong thing in front of Ken Hitchcock.
Before we leave you today, do you remember there was the, what do they call him, the Pakistani Hulk?
Yes,
the wrestler or whatever.
Yes, I do remember that.
And you remember the moment where he has that tremendous weightlifting feat.
Oh, it was amazing.
Where there was sort of canned audio. There was no sponsorship of any kind.
Breaking news, though, on CNN. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's right. Breaking news on CNN. So let's just say it might have been fake. But what's it really look like? I haven't seen weightlifting in years. You remember Alexei, the Russian guy? I mean, you got me. That's the only guy we knew, right? The world's strongest man.
Yeah.
And they used to have it on Wide World of Sports when you didn't see any sports, right? You never saw sports. There's no sports television, no sports radio. So you only saw these kinds of guys on Wide World of Sports. So I came across this morning. Get a load of what it's like when someone lifts this amount of weight. It's really quite incredible. I would assume property of, what's their governing body? USA Weightlifting. What is that, Russell?
I think it says International Weightlifting Federation.
Okay.
Russell would know more about this than us.
Yes, he would. So it is their property, but get a load of this.
We are looking at a 257-kilo clean and jerk, and if he is successful, this will be a 468-kilo.
No, 477.
Thank you, sorry, world record.
And an all-time total record.
Look at the bar. It's crazy. Look at it. Look how many plates.
Once again, Masha Talaganski has done the unthinkable.
477 kilo total, 257, and look at this lift. Look at the way he stands up with 257 kilos on his shoulder.
That is, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Yeah. Bend in the bar.
Yeah, Russell said,
he does that.
He's done that before.
Before we go, Blake Wheeler signs a 5-year deal worth $41.25 million. It's an $8.25 million cap hit. In the last 3 seasons, he has outscored John Tavares in each of the last 3 seasons.
We keep talking about Sports Interaction. By the way, someone sitting across from me won his parlay. Yeah, through Sports Interaction.
Do it.
He was a winner.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Join us tomorrow. We'll have more. And remember, NFL starts on Thursday. You want to get your money now? We've got your picks for you. Victor Newman, maybe even Paul Stanley's rock and roll picks of love. Yeah, we're going to do that again. One guy said, kind of sounds like Mr. Herbert from Family Guy.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, that's not good.